However, Santos has agreed to testify that he ordered the hit on Peters.
Welcome to YouTube,
but what he'll say or
video
do when
air
he's on the
check.
stand is anyone's
Live in
guess.
cities in
James
Florida.
Santos is a drug trafficker, a member of the Vice Lords, who brought Brandy in at some point in the 2000s to work for him as a mule. Mr. Santos will testify in this trial. Mr. Santos will admit to you that he orchestrated the murders.
There's also new evidence for the jury to consider from Peters' home in Tallahassee, where the victims were found on November 20th, 2010. Peters was beaten and shot to death, and the 3 children were found in a bathtub. Tania was dead from a gunshot wound, and the other 2 children were drowned. The state says the same DNA expert who testified in the first trial analyzed a new piece of evidence and made a discovery: the presence of a DNA profile matching Segura's in a mixture found on a bar in the bathtub.
And what was your calculation and opinion regarding frequency?
The probability is that it's 700 billion times more likely that the data is explained by Brandy Peters, the children, and Henry Segura, rather than 3 untested individuals.
The defense objects to the testimony and brought in their own expert, who said there's no way to know for sure if the DNA is a match to Segura or his son, but the judge decided to allow the testimony.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Really, it's a renewed attack on the prior ruling, not really a statistical issue.
Finally, another key difference in Segura's retrial is the jury itself. 6 people instead of 12. It's rare to have only 6 people sitting in judgment of someone facing the death penalty.
This is something that we've discussed probably more extensively than any issue since the last trial, 2.5 years. Every time I make a thing, we've talked about this.
All right, let's go live in the city of Tampa, Florida.
We understand that it is a risky move, which is why there's no case law specifically authorizing it. Just from a
take a look inside the courtroom.
It is easier to get 6 people to agree to anything than 12, which makes it a higher likelihood that he'd be convicted.
In his waiver request, Segura acknowledged the potential downsides for him. As he claimed in his request, there are tactical advantages to a 6-person jury due to the evidence in this case, and preferred to proceed accordingly, despite the state's objection.
That we're confident in our evidence, and for the same reason stated that it makes a guilty verdict more likely, it also makes a not guilty verdict more likely, and that's Mr. Segura's goal.
Otherwise, the state and the defense have been tight-lipped about any other changes in strategy. But as with any retrial, it's safe to assume that both sides will take lessons from the past and pivot accordingly.
And traditional thinking, when you're talking about a retrial, is advantage prosecution, because generally speaking, going into a case, the prosecution discloses all their information in discovery to the defense, and they know what the theory is. Plus, they have the defendant himself that can provide any sort of insight into any of that. But a lot of times, prosecutors don't know exactly what the defense is going to do and how the case is going to play out. Now, the reason that thinking might not work in this case is because it seems like the defense is the one who's going to make a lot of changes here in the retrial. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter live in Tallahassee, Florida tonight. And Chanley, for me, that's the big part, right? The key difference in this retrial is really coming from the defense side.
Live in the cities tonight.
It really is, and that is their waiver of the 12-person jury, so this jury box is half full. That was a strategic move by the defense. This defense attorney also an opening statement telling this jury that they will hear from Carlos Santos. They didn't have Carlos Santos during the first trial. That's huge, and they're making these promises saying he's going to take responsibility for the murder and that Henry Segura is innocent. They're also going to counter Dr. McElfresh, the key DNA analyst who came forward in 2017 with a new test that pinpoints Henry Segura next to his DNA next to the bodies of the babies in the bathtub. So that will be big for the defense too.
All right, so let's talk first about the big witness, which is this Santos character. He's a federal prisoner. Is he at the courthouse waiting to testify? Is he in custody locally there in Tallahassee.
He has been transferred to the Leon County Detention Center. He is here on standby for the defense's case in chief. And this is something that we know is going to happen, but in the first trial, he invoked his right against self-incrimination and did not testify. So will he have a change of heart, even though he is here in Tallahassee, and not testify? We know that the prosecution, if he does take the stand, will vigorously cross-examine Santos about his credibility, that he's tried to claim a responsibility for other crimes, and that this jury should not believe him. We know the prosecutor has said they left no stone unturned in investigating these alleged cartel leads, and to them, Brandy Peters had no connection to any sort of drug cartel.
And that's, again, it's a big part of the defense case. If they can somehow make that connection, then it becomes huge here. But we'll have to wait for the defense case to see that, because prosecutors have no evidence of it. So in taking the fifth, it seems at the first trial, he just like, I'm taking the fifth, I'm not testifying at all. What I'm gathering here from the retrial is that he wants to pick and choose which questions he will answer and questions he will take the fifth to. Is that what we are expecting, or is it all kind of up in the air? We don't know exactly what to expect from this man.
All kind of up in the air. We don't know exactly what to expect from this man. It's anyone's guess. From his past behaviors, he's a little unpredictable, and so it was very brazen for the defense attorney to come out and promise this to the jury, knowing that in the past he's retracted what he said. He has invoked the right against self-incrimination. He does have, or did at the time, has an attorney. He still does have an attorney representing his interest here, advising him, but again, it comes down to his decision and what he wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is such a wild card, and could potentially make this retrial so much different. And, you know, it's a mixed bag. I mean, obviously, if he says exactly what the defense says he's going to say, and there's some way to independently corroborate that, it's huge for the defense. But if he comes across as some sort of a, I don't know, he's like a little bit off, or he's self-aggrandizing, trying to take credit for a whole bunch of murders because we know people do that from time to time, try to take credit for things that murders they didn't commit and things that they didn't do. It's all going to come down to how that all plays out. But you're telling me that prosecutors independently investigated this.
They did their due diligence in investigating all of the leads, and there was nothing credible or corroborating this potential cartel lead to them. All the evidence pointed back to the one man, Henry Segura, who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to commit these murders. We also know that the defense, not just Santos' testimony, but they want to help corroborate, just in case he may not come across that great to a jury, or if he does take the Fifth Amendment, that he sent allegedly a trap team, a guy named Paramore and a guy named Griffin, and the defense told the jury in opening statements that Paramore was caught on a wiretap, also confessing to being involved in the murder of Brandy Peters. The defense also brought up how Griffin's cell phone places him around Peters' home the evening of the murders, and that this foreign male DNA found in Brandy Peters' home was a Colombian national, Aviles, who's connected to this drug cartel Santos is allegedly a part of. So it's not just the words of Santos, but they're trying to buffer it with some other evidence as well.
Well,
live news tonight, City, Tampa, Florida.
And say anything,
Tallahassee.
For what it's worth. It is coming from the mouth of a criminal, someone who's in prison or jail for some reason. But to be able to corroborate it is huge. But it does seem like it's a huge undertaking for the defense, as if they are actually prosecuting a separate case here.
It really is, and I found out today they're working pro bono for Henry Segura, must really believe in his defense and his innocence, and I think that shows by the vigorous defense they're putting forth, bringing in a witness list that is, I wouldn't even print the document, Vinny, because it's so long. It's the longest defense witness list I've ever seen, and they're going all out to try to get this man, who is the longest residing inmate at the Leon County Detention Center, out of jail.
Wow, that's a huge fact that they're working pro bono, because this is hours and hours and hours of investigation, and then this trial is not a quick trial. So they're investing